Hello there. Well, I'm back from holiday and I thought I'd just do a quick update video to let you all know what's happening. So Deanna and I and Jessica went for our first holiday, just the three of us, and had a fantastic time on the coast. Basically where we live in Croatia, it's nice, it's not bad. Kind of the countryside is very scenic, especially during the summer. But when you drive maybe 3 or 4 hours to the coast, it's like a completely different version of Croatia. And the whole scenery and the whole kind of geography changes. And we had a really nice time on the coast. The benefit that we had was that we went in June before the tourist season starts, but when the weather is still really hot. So we had the best of both worlds. We had beaches, not to ourselves, but relatively, not clogged up with tourists. And I was able to, well, both of us were able to kind of do lots of swimming, and I was going snorkeling, and just had a really nice relaxing time. Went on a trip into Cedars, went on a trip into Split, and had some nice meals, and just a really nice relaxing summer holiday on the coast. So we all really enjoyed it. And when I came back, I'd received a nice big box of books, which is the perfect welcome home. So I'm just going to show you one or two of them because I'm very excited about them. This book I didn't even know was a book until I received it. I had it on my list. I assumed it was a booklet, because this is Life by Judge Rutherford, and it was published in 1929. And the funny thing is that it doesn't appear on the Rutherford rainbow painting. So in the 1939 book Children, there is a painting of the Rutherford rainbow to show readers what other books there are in the series, and nowhere will you see on the painting this book and another book called Comfort for the Jews. So when this arrived in the post, I was like, wow, that is actually a book. And I'll come back to this later because there's a reason why it wasn't included in it was decanonized, as I like to put it, from the Rutherford Rainbow. So that was one book I received. Another book I was really anxious to get, and I've now got, is a 1921 original copy of The Harp of God by Rutherford. So this was one of the earliest books that he wrote. It was like a Bible teach book of its day, and immediately on first opening it, I've found some pretty crazy stuff in there. So that was very interesting to read. And one thing I'm really excited about is this Divine Plan of the Ages. It's a 1913 edition. And the amazing thing is, it looks like it was printed yesterday. It's in such fantastic condition. So, and it has the pyramid chart inside, the fold out pyramid chart inside. So I was absolutely thrilled when I found this waiting for me when I got home from holiday. So I'm going to, I don't know whether I can thank my benefactor by name, but thank you very much for that. And another book I received, which I had actually ordered from Amazon, which I'm very excited about, is this book. Jessica's now getting in on the act. This book, Jehovah's Witnesses and the Third Reich, Sectarian Politics Under Persecution by Jim Penton. And I was really pleased to receive this because basically, as many of you know, I'm in the process of getting my book finished, and my book is 11 chapters long, or so far it's going to be 11 chapters long, and 3 of those chapters I go into the history of Jehovah's Witnesses. And one aspect of Jehovah's Witness history which I really felt the need to educate myself more on was the episode of the Second World War and what on earth happened with Hitler and the Jews and Rutherford and the Bible students, as they were. They changed their name in 1931, didn't they? So they just changed to Jehovah's Witnesses. But there was, I've already done a video on the 1933 yearbook, which has a copy of the Declaration of Facts, which has some extremely anti-Semitic language. And you're reading it thinking, how can Watchtower possibly get out of this? How how can Watchtower kind of scrub the slates clean and just sanitize their history of something as damning as the Declaration of Facts. And basically what Penton does, and I would thoroughly recommend this book, it's absolutely fantastic. Penton goes to extreme lengths to dig up what all of the Watchtower apologists, both witnesses and non-witnesses, have said in defence of Watchtower and in defence of the Declaration of Facts. And he explains exactly the meaning behind what was said, why it was said. And he has a really lengthy appendix in the book in which he actually has reproduced, I'll just show you an example, he has reproduced Gestapo interrogation documents, because basically some of the Watchtower officials who ended up becoming quite senior members of the organisation and even having their stories retold in later years in Watchtower publications, some of them were interrogated by the Gestapo and gave information to the Nazi authorities. Obviously, you can't really blame them for it because they were being tortured, but even so, it's not something that you read about in Watchtower literature. When you read Watchtower literature, you're given the impression that witnesses were completely solid and never buckled, never broke their integrity at any point. But when you read this book, which has been fantastically well researched, you realise that's not actually completely true. And I don't know whether Jim Penton will ever see this video, but if he ever does, I just want to thank him for the amount of effort and hours that will have gone into writing this book, because you know, who would have written it if he hadn't written it? That's what I was, as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, you know, I would never have been able to write this book, and I'm something of a Watchtower geek, and I would never have been able to go to quite the lengths that Penton has gone to put all of this information together. And if he hadn't done it, I don't think anyone would have done it. So thank you so much, Jim Penton, and please, if you can, and if you're interested in the minutiae of Watchtower history as I am, this is a must read. So another must read is a new book that's just come out by Rick Kelly, and it's called, what's it called, Deanna? Mariuka Marilyn, Leaving Mama's Club, something along those lines. I'm going to put a link in the description below. Please buy a copy if you feel inclined on Kindle. Obviously Rick Kelly is a good friend of mine. We met up recently in Zurich, but he's put together these two stories of two remarkable women and their journeys, both inside and leaving the organisation. And I think it's important that we hear the story of brave women who've been able to stand up and say, you know, enough is enough. I also want to mention this book, which I'm going to be spending a little bit of time over the next week or so writing a review of. I took it with me on holiday, and Combating Cult Mind Control. It's the 25th anniversary edition of this book by Stephen Hassan, and I'm going to be writing a review of it over the next week or so. But in the meantime, I'm going to put a link to where you can buy a copy if you feel so inclined. But the good thing about it, and I'm not just plugging it because it has my story in it, but the good thing about it is that Hassan really includes a lot of information that's specific to Jehovah's Witnesses, because obviously since he wrote the first edition, he's obviously educated himself that Jehovah's Witnesses are indeed a cult, and a very prevalent one. And so he's tried to mould his advice and his methods to suit Watchtower indoctrination. So I'm going to be dealing with that in an article soon. As I said, I'm making headway with my book. I've now written the first 5 chapters, and I've kind of leapt forward and written chapter 10. So I'm kind of doing it in an odd way, but it's so far working well. I'm hoping you'll like the finished product. It's an interesting summer that we have ahead. Deanna and I, we have a trip planned to Belgium, another trip planned to Belgium, and that's going to be end of July, early August, because we're going to a wedding. So Matthias Wouters, who I did an interview video with, he's getting married. So we're really delighted to be attending that wedding. And then there'll be another wedding which we're going to, I think, in late August. And that's for another XJW couple who I'm not sure I can name them at this stage, because I don't have their permission, but they've actually asked me to conduct the ceremony, which is quite remarkable, really. I mean, when I left the Witnesses, or even when I started being inactive, I thought that ship had sailed. You know, I never imagined I would be taking a wedding ceremony after leaving the organisation. But this couple are obviously not religious, and they still want someone to, you know, give a little speech or, you know, help them tie the knots. So I'm very, very honoured to be called upon to do that. So that's something I'm looking forward to. I think that's about it. So I just wanted to give you an update on what's happening, and I'm going to try and, you know, keep the YouTube channel going as much as possible. I have got a video in the works dealing with Tony Morris because he has recently given some talks at the 2015 regional convention, one of the conventions in New York State, and I've managed to get hold of the recordings, or the videos, with the thanks of Wi-Fi Bandit. And I've got some I was just doing some editing today, in fact, and my plan is to do a JW Broadcasting style rebuttal or commentary on some of the things he said. And I never mentioned, did I, why I never mentioned why this book was left out. Sorry, I skipped that part. It's because it mentions Zionism, and it mentions this idea that Rutherford had at the time of writing it, that that Palestine, that Jews moving back to Palestine was all part of God's plan and fulfillment of God's prophecy, which was also mentioned in his book Comfort for the Jews. And because he did a complete U-turn on that around the time of the Declaration of Facts and dealing with Hitler and all that kind of thing, he basically stopped printing this book and Comfort for the Jews, and, as I say, decanonized them from his collection. And I know about this because it's basically described fairly explicitly in this book. So it's amazing how this book and this book arrived at the same time, and it's only through reading this book that I know more about this book and what became of it. So I'm really enjoying my journey of learning more about Watchtower Publications. I will be making more videos specifically about certain books as part of my Our Spiritual Heritage series. I know those videos won't be for everybody, but I just think it's a really potent way of helping people out of their indoctrination when they see firsthand the nonsense that was written in these publications. And I know David Splain recently did a video about the faithful slave, and how it's not 1,900 years old because there hasn't always been a Bible. So without a Bible you can't have spiritual food. Well, I would argue that they have a very flexible idea as to what spiritual food is if you read some of what's mentioned in these books. I would not classify some of the nonsense in these older publications as in any way spiritual food. So that's interesting. But no, I'm going to try and be a little bit more diligent with my YouTube videos, and I would like to ask actually that if anybody has any questions for me, any specific questions you would like me to answer, please mention them in the comments below, and I'll try and do a video just answering your questions. And if you have any specific subjects that you would like me to do a video on, again, please mention them in the comments. I do have ideas for videos, but I'm not always able to kind of do those ideas straight away, and eventually those ideas sometimes end up kind of being forgotten. So it's nice if I'm kind of prompted to do certain subjects. If you think there's a burning issue that I've not covered yet that needs to be covered, again, please let me know. So I hope you found this video interesting, and thank you for watching.